Okay, good evening. I think we're live now. So hello and welcome to the sixth form open evening, information evening. I can't believe I'm doing another one of these sitting in the lecture theatre staring at a camera. But it does at least mean I think my mum's going to tune in tonight. I told her that she could watch and see what I do because I don't think she knows. Welcome. I'm sorry we've got to do it this way, but I think it was the right decision to make given the current situation. I'm Eugene Spires, I'm the head of sixth form, and with me I've got Yeli, our student president, and James, one of our sixth form prefects. And I've got a team here helping us with questions and all that sort of stuff. I'm just going to give you an overview of the evening, but broadly speaking, I'm going to talk with the help of Yeli and James for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes probably, and give you an overview of some of the sixth form things you need to know. And then there'll be time for you to ask some questions. About one or two in advance. You can ask questions via the text chat. And I've actually got Mr. Humphries, who's the current head of year 13 and will be the head of year for your sons and daughters in the other room, and Mr. Spurdow, who are going to pop those questions on the screen for me here so I can see them and respond to them later in the lesson. Later in the presentation. Okay, so a brief overview of the evening. This is the welcome, the overview. Then I'm going to talk to you briefly about subject information sharing. Why you should pick Sheldon sixth form, what happens next, and then time for questions at the end. So first of all, obviously there are advantages and disadvantages of doing it this way. One of the key advantages of us doing it this way is that hopefully nobody's going to get COVID, but also that you can ask questions via the text chat function, which you wouldn't be able to do if I was doing this talk standing on stage in the hall. But the big downside is that your sons and daughters and you won't be able to go around and see the subject presentations. So what we're doing several things in order to try and kind of fill that gap. The first thing is that in the student portal, which students can access, there's a career section in there, and every subject that delivers, that has a subject in the sixth form here, has prepared a presentation. They vary, some of them are PowerPoints, some of them are PowerPoints with voiceovers and video and that sort of stuff. And the presentations that are in the career section of the student portal are those with kind of full functionality. They've got video and audio if that's how they were made. Unfortunately, trying to put those onto the website has meant that some of those files were incredibly large. And so if you go to the website and to the sixth form area and go to the curriculum section, then you can go into individual curriculum areas. You will find those presentations in there as well, so that parents can see them more easily because they can't access the student portal. And so that anybody out there who is watching from other schools, or my mum, for example, can go into the curriculum section of the sixth form part of the website and see those presentations. Those presentations will not necessarily have the full functionality because of the size of the files, and so they may not have the audio voiceovers or some of the embedded video, but they will have all the key information about what will be studied and how they're assessed and those sorts of things. A key thing as well, I think, is that obviously talking to staff in school. If you're studying English literature now, then what's it like to study at A level, and talking to the teachers that you have. You can find out on the website and in the prospectus that's on the website about who teaches certain subjects. So, for example, if it's a new subject like criminology or sociology or something like that, then talking to the right staff. Staff will always be happy to talk about their subject. Staff love talking about their subject. So finding ways to talk to staff will be really important. And then finally, although it's not ideal in terms of the timing, our induction in July, obviously we're asking for applications before then, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But our induction in July is really important because it used to be that we only had a morning for induction and then a day. And last year, because we had to do this same system, we had a 3.5 day induction in July. And that meant that every student got to do 2 double lessons of the subjects they thought they wanted to do, that they'd applied to do. And what that meant was that you had 2 double lessons in a week, which gave people an opportunity to get a real taster for those subjects. And rather than just having a presentation, they get to have actual taster lessons of those A-level subjects. And what it meant was that people came to us at the end of that week and changed their mind about their options. And that's something I'll come back to again, because I've already spoken to a few parents about that, which is about the deadline, getting the application in. Obviously, people not necessarily obviously, people will change their mind. What we want at the moment is a kind of an idea, so we can start putting together a timetable of what people want to do, but people will change their mind as they find out more about their subjects and as they get results from their exams and stuff. So it's important to get as much information as possible, but know that people can change their mind as we go through this process. Just bear with me one moment. So, okay, I'm going to come on to talk about why choosing Sheldon. There's lots of good reasons to choose Sheldon, and I'm going to talk through some of what I think are the kind of the key features that I think make us a good choice for you. First thing for me is really, really good support, and I'm going to talk about this a bit more detail on the next slide. One of the key things that I think it's worth pointing out, because when I talk to students about this, I think they take it for granted because they don't know what other schools do. Those of you that are at our school already know that students not only see their tutor twice a day, but they also have time to see their tutors on a one-to-one basis 2 or 3 times throughout the year, and that continues into the sixth form. Now, I don't know any other school that does that, and that's a key part of the support. So seeing a tutor twice a day and having one-to-ones with your tutor continues into the sixth form, and I'll come back and talk about some more support stuff on the next slide. The range of courses is important. We offer, because we're a big sixth form with about 350 students, it gives us the chance to be able to offer a broad range of courses. We offer about 35 different courses. Some of the most popular subjects have 2 or 3 groups, so things like math, psychology, etc. have 2 or 3 groups, and so it gives more people the chance to do the choice of subjects they want to do. We're an inclusive sixth form. What that means is that we want as many people as possible to be able to stay on into our sixth form. Obviously, it needs to be right for them to study A-levels, which is why we do have entry criteria. But those entry criteria are based on the subjects that you want to study. So lots of sixth forms will ask you to have 5 6s or 5 5s or something like that. We changed ours a couple of years ago, so you need to get the entry requirements are you need to get the entry requirement for the subjects you want to study, and if you meet those entry requirements, then that's kind of the way into the sixth form. So we're inclusive. We want as many people to stay as possible and do the courses that are right for them. Enrichment and Project 5000. I'll talk a bit more about this in more detail on a slide to come. But for me, although our core business is obviously teaching and learning and getting people really good grades, I also want people to have a fantastic time here for 2 years and do lots of other things that are going to be enjoyable, but are also going to enhance their CV, but also mean that they have a great time. And I'll talk a bit more about what Project 5000 is and the enrichment opportunities in a minute too. But in terms of that core business, our last kind of pre-pandemic results of 2019 were fantastic results, and VA is value added. That's how the progress that students make from their starting points. And according to ALPS, which is one of the kind of external data analysis tools that we use, we were in the top 20% of schools in 2019 for value added, i.e. students come in at this point and they make this amount of progress. So we were in the top 20% for that. And again, a bit more about results a bit later. Those of you who know the school will know that we've got fantastic facilities, great IT facilities for doing stuff like this, but also around the site it's really well looked after, and specialist study areas for the sixth form, etc. And our year 12 into year 13 retention is fantastic. Once you're in the sixth form, the chances are you'll stay for 2 years and complete your courses. And again, I've got some data on that a bit later. So those are some of the key headlines, and I'm going to pick up on some of those and give you a bit more detail as we go through some more slides. I can see there's a few questions starting to come in. I'll probably answer most of those at the end, but I'll see if any of them are relevant as we're going along. Actually, so the first one actually is when is the July induction. I've got a slide towards the end about what happens next. July induction is the 4th to the 7th of July, for those of you booking holidays, hopefully with your fingers crossed. And in terms of kind of next steps, there will be opportunities to talk to a careers advisor as well. I'll talk about that in just a moment. A little bit more about the support. So obviously the key person is the tutor. The tutor is your initial point of contact. They'll get to know your sons and daughters very well. They'll same sort of format as the rest of the school in that they see them twice a day and they have time for one-to-ones. And that relationship becomes even more important, arguably, in the sixth form, because whether your sons and daughters end up going to university or applying for apprenticeships and employment, the tutor will be the one who is taking a responsibility for writing references for your sons and daughters. So that relationship is really important. And obviously they offer support in lots of other ways too. I'm not going to talk around, the subject teachers is fairly self-explanatory in terms of subject support. The sixth form team, myself, I've got a head of year 12 and head of year 13, Mr. Humphreys and Miss Fraser, who rotate, and it would be Mr. Humphreys, who's year 13 now, who would be the head of year 12 in September, and Miss Humphreys, who lots of you will have had contact with, and if not, will do in the coming months, who is our administrator. Learning support, obviously you know about. Learning support tend to have less interaction with the sixth form, but are still available for kind of support for structuring essays and helping people to organise themselves. The school nurse drop-in on a Wednesday is open to anybody, is also open to the sixth form. Mrs. Coombs and Mrs. Strauss are based in student services. And again, although they do have a kind of a whole school remit, Mrs. Coombs in particular spends most of her time working with sixth form students on non-academic issues of all sorts, bereavement, anxiety issues, all sorts of things. And Mrs. Strauss is our new school counsellor who's been with us in September, who is busy and is doing a lot of good work supporting sixth formers as well. So we know we have to get the support stuff right in order to be able to do all the good enrichment and get good results. So we take that really seriously. A few other bits. So Aspire, Enrich, Achieve is on all of our sixth form things. So first of all, in terms of aspiration, in terms of where students go after the sixth form, you'll see in the top right hand corner there pictures of 4 of our students from the summer, Ed, Maddie, Dan, and Joseph, who have gone off to Oxbridge universities. So that's the 4. It's a bit confusing because Ed is actually in America on a scholarship to playing tennis. And he's deferred his place to Cambridge, but that 74% of students going off to university is slightly up from the year before, and has remained constant for the last few years, although there's been a bit of an increase in degree apprenticeships over the last few years, higher in degree apprenticeships over the last few years, and despite the pandemic, that number remained fairly constant as well. The key thing that's changed on this slide from last year is that 4% of students staying into Sheldon sixth form. Usually students don't stay here beyond 2 years, but obviously because of the pandemic there were a handful of students who were not happy with their results and have stayed to repeat year 13 and to improve those results. That's unusual, that doesn't usually happen that much, and the gap year number is lower than usual, again for obvious reasons due to the pandemic. So students go off to all sorts of universities, really broad range from Oxford and Cambridge, which often get the headlines, but it's also really important to me that there's a big chunk of students who go off to university who are the first in their family to go to university, and who leave with, I don't know, 2 C's and a D, but for them that's life changing because it gets them into university and gets them onto the career path they want. There we go. Oh, it's gone too far now. Let me go back. In terms of the enrich part, here's some pictures. Really, there's all sorts of enrichment that goes on across the school. Here you've got some volunteering in school, painting some stuff, and the Christmas hats was supporting a primary school event before Christmas. Obviously, sport and music and performing arts. And I'll come back to those in just a minute. But in terms of the core enrichment, things that all students will have as part of their kind of sixth form experience. The tutor programme, it fits in with some of the whole school themes. So when there's a whole school theme of I don't know, Black History Month or something like that, then we may well be doing similar things. But we also do very specific sixth form things like preparing for post-18 decisions. Almost from day one we talk to them about that, because lots of students have got no idea what they want to do in the future. And we know that, and we help them to try and figure that out as they go through. So the tutor programme consists of wellbeing things, it consists of post-18 preparation, it consists of a kind of social, political, moral discussions about what's going on in the news, and it consists of skills, and I mean skills in the broadest possible sense. At the start of year 12, it's often about what skills do you need to be a good sixth former, and study skills, that sort of thing. By the time we get towards the end of year 13, we talk to them about much more practical skills like how to do washing and how to shop on a budget and how to cook and that sort of stuff in preparation for leaving us. The post-18 programme isn't just in the tutor programme. We have visiting speakers coming in to talk about various things. There's been lots of stuff that has gone online, so we share lots of stuff in terms of webinars and assemblies. We often get students to come back. So this year already we've had a student who has gone off to Ireland to do an apprenticeship. He's come back to talk about the fact that he applied to university and for apprenticeships to keep his options open. So our post-18 programme is, you know, all sorts of things beyond the tutor programme as well. We're going to a UCAS conference in April as well to kickstart the UCAS process for year 12. Work experience. Work experience is, again, it's something that's been hit a bit in the last year or two, but our plan for the current year 12 is that in July they will go out and do a week's work experience. They might not all find placements because of the current situation, but our intention is to get as many of them as possible out doing a week's work experience, and those that don't will do lots of virtual work experience and things in school which will support that process too. And finally, this tends to split an audience when I talk to students about it. Sixth form PE on a Wednesday afternoon is compulsory for all sixth formers. So it's a really, and it's because we believe that it's really, really good for physical health, really, really good for mental health, and it's a really good opportunity for year 12 and year 13 to mix. Not quite so much in the last year or two, the mixing, but it's really good for kind of morale in the sixth form. We do varsity throughout the year where year 12 compete against year 13 as well, and it's a really good thing for physical and mental health. Okay, one of the other key things in terms of our enrichment, and this is something that's changed dramatically in the last 2 or 3 years, is what's kind of encompassed in this slide, and there's a lot going on here, and I'm not going to talk through every single word on here, but essentially Project 5000 is about kind of what we do in addition, okay, and there's all sorts of things that students can do in addition to their studies. What we've said to the current year 12 is they need to elect to do an elective, so they need to elect to do at least one thing from the kind of the goldy mustardy coloured circle on the left hand side. So for one 50-minute lesson per fortnight, they need to do something from that circle. So all of those things there are things that are about giving something back to the community. It's either giving something back to the school community by volunteering in a lower school PE lesson, or by giving something back to the broader community by going into a local care home or into a local primary school or something like that. Students across year 12 are doing that already, and year 13 to be honest, and some of them have been doing that since September, and so by the time they leave they're going to have hours and hours of work experience in primary schools for those who want to go on to do primary education, or in care homes for those who want to go into kind of medical things, and some of them are just, you know, they might not have a career in mind but are just doing it because they enjoy it and because it'll enhance their CV. The reason we've called it Project 5000 is the current year 12 giving one 50-minute lesson per fortnight for the whole year would equate to about 2,800 hours of community kind of give back, if you like. And so when the new year 12 come in and start doing the same thing, we're looking at the Sheldon sixth form generating 5,000 hours every academic year of doing good things in their local community, which I think is a fantastic thing. It's good for them, it's good for the community, it's good for their CVs. Gold DofE sits in the middle because obviously there is an element of the Duke of Edinburgh Award which is doing good things for your local community, doing volunteering, but the stuff on the right hand side is kind of optional, so they have to do something from the left hand side for one lesson per fortnight. The things on the right hand side are optional extras, if you like, electives that we encourage them to do. Some of those things on the right hand side come with UCAS points for, you know, getting into university, so their qualification. So the EPQ is the extended project qualification, which I'll give out lots more detail about later in the year, and core maths is also an AS qualification for those students who don't want to or don't get the entry requirements to do A-level maths but do still want to do maths beyond GCSE. BSL is British Sign Language. Russian is not a qualification, it's kind of conversational Russian, because it makes you stand out a mile on a CV. MOOC is a massive open online course, so there's loads and loads of ways to learn all sorts of things for free online. And those things on the right hand side may vary from year to year. That's what we offer right now, and we will confirm the electives offer in the July induction, but they don't need to opt for one of those until September. When we come back in September, we sort out the choices for electives. Okay, so we will make sure that people get more information about that during the July induction, and can opt for those in September. So you don't need to worry about those now. All of those things are about broadening the curriculum and enriching the experience and improving kind of employability. I'm just going to pause for them for a moment, see what questions we've got through, see if there's anything there. Number of students in a tutor group typically is between 15 and 20. Most tutor groups are around about 16, 17 at the moment. And in terms of Project 5000, if I go back to that slide for a moment, the bit on the left hand side is an expectation of being in the sixth form. So one 50-minute lesson per fortnight, doing something from the left hand side there, is an expectation, yeah, and the other stuff is optional. We've been really flexible about what the things on the left hand side can be, so it fits in with people's particular interests. I don't think we've said no to any, but in terms of the volunteering, for example, we've got people volunteering in all sorts of places, doing all sorts of things. As long as we can make contact with the right people and get risk assessments in place, it's fine. Additional enrichment opportunities. So the expedition in July, we will launch an expedition to the year 11s, planning for them to go on it in summer 2024. And we launch it early because it's usually quite a big thing that takes some fundraising for. So currently there is a group of students in year 12. I think you signed up for it, James has signed up for it. So he'll be able to maybe answer some questions about that in a minute, although they're at the very early stages. They sign up early in year 12, so we present it to them in July, we get them to sign up in September, then they've got about 2 years to fundraise for it. So James is planning on going to Zambia in 2023 for 3 weeks, where they do some trekking along the Zambezi, they'll go to Victoria Falls, but they'll also do a project in a school while they're there. Sheldon Scholars is for those students who already are aspiring to really competitive courses at really competitive universities. So those, Oxford and Cambridge is part of that, but not all of that. So other competitive universities and other competitive courses as well, things like law and medicine. And we meet regularly throughout the year and talk to you about things that you should be doing to get ready earlier, because your deadline for university is October of your second year, and it comes around a bit quicker than everybody else. Lots of university and apprenticeship taster courses. We go out to visit places, we get people to come in. There's a senior student team, Yeli's the student president, and there's a prefect team. There's all sorts of societies and committees to get involved in. Debating Society, there's a new inclusion diversity group getting involved in how we deal with all sorts of inclusion and diversity issues around the school, whether it's around ethnicity or sexuality or gender and that sort of stuff. And there's a charity committee, because one of the things the sixth form does brilliantly is raise lots of money for charity when we're able to do big events. And we've got students who are doing competitive level sports. So we've got students in the sixth form who are in the top 10 for hammer throwing. We've got Ed Opie last year who's gone to America to play tennis. We encourage and support that, as we do students taking part in the performing arts and production. I'm going to pause there and drink some of my water, where I hand over to Yeli and James. I think maybe Yeli first, okay, as our student president, who are going to give you just a minute about why they think the sixth form is a great place to be.
Well, for me, I've been here since I was 6-7, and the reason why I stayed was, well, one of the reasons is because I really like the way they teach things here. You have smaller classes, so you're able to get more individual support throughout your A-levels. You're able to email teachers who might not even teach you to get more support as well. And just generally it's quite high quality, and you're able to complete your A-levels to a good standard. another reason is the campus, I would say. I like the way it's set out, especially if you're new to the school. It'll take you probably a couple days to pick everything up and learn where everything is. It's not too difficult to navigate around. And because it's quite closed, you're able to recognize people, and it's probably easier to make friends than, I don't know, maybe a bit more spread out campus, I would say. And I really like the choices of electives. I'm like a language nerd, so when I saw Russian, I was like, oh, that's for me. Yeah, so yeah, those are my 3 reasons.
Excellent, thank you. James?
Okay, so I'm in year 12 at the moment, so I'm studying maths, physics and biology for A-level, but I also did doing conversational Russian as my electives and EPQ as well as DV. So I particularly chose Sheldon Sixth Form for the great community. I think that's been mentioned. It's just a really, really nice place to be. So I've been here like since year 7, and over time I realised that immersing myself in the school life was just a great way to make friends and have fun and become part of the atmosphere and the community that's here. So it was the natural choice for me also to stay on at Sheldon because of the opportunities like inside and outside of the classroom. So my biggest pieces of advice to everyone would be to just pick subjects that you really enjoy, because that will make your experience so much better, and as well as get involved. It just adds so much to being at sixth form. And then the other great aspect about Sheldon is the facilities we have, like the common room for socialising, but then also the study room, so you can have work or go and meet other people depending on what you want to do, as well as a sixth form cafe, so you can eat as well, which is great. We also have access, as Sir said, to all of the other school's facilities as well, which is really, really good. So yeah, that's what I think makes Sheldon really stand out, the opportunities, facilities, and the enrichment here is just brilliant.
Fantastic, thank you both. There might be some more questions for you in a minute when we come back to questions at the end. Brilliant, thank you. There's a massive round of applause across Chippenham right now for you two. Okay, on to the last couple of slides from me. In terms of our Aspire, Enrich, Achieve, like I say, it's our core business is in terms of results. This is the data on here. First of all, the pictures on here are for this summer. So the students you can see there were some of the 22 students who got a clean sweep of A stars, A's and distinction stars, and have gone off to all sorts of different universities to do all sorts of different things, and to some to higher apprenticeships and gap years and things. But in terms of results, the last pre-pandemic set of results is 2019. Like I say, ALPS was this external data organisation that have put us in the top 20% for value added, so the progress that students make. 6% of our students got A stars, 50% of our results were A star to B, 75% A star to C, and as I said earlier, 94% retention in terms of those students that from year 12 into year 13. The vast majority of students continue with us all the way through, and the 3 or 4 students that left for either employment or apprenticeships after realising that sixth form wasn't necessarily for them. So we get very good results. So the bottom line is that teaching and learning that Yeli talked about gets us very good results, as well as all those other really positive things. But you know, that's our core business. Last couple of things from me before we go to questions. Entry requirements I've mentioned briefly already. Students need to meet the entry requirements for the subjects they want to study. So you'll find that information in the course booklet, which is on the website. So if you go to the sixth form area of the website, there's a course booklet and prospectus on there, and you will find individual pages on there, and on there you'll find the entry requirements for individual subjects. They vary from subject to subject, and in subjects where you haven't done the GCSE, usually it's to do with your English or maths results. Check the requirements for each subject in the course booklet. That's obviously quite important. I've just mentioned that, and a few people have asked about the number of subjects. The vast majority of students will start on 3 courses. I know that certainly when I was at school, and probably lots of the parents who are watching, it used to be quite a thing for students to do 4, especially if they were aspiring to very competitive universities. There's just no advantage to doing four courses anymore. Even the most competitive elite universities and elite courses want you to get 3 very good A-levels. And so there's no advantage to doing 4. There are some exceptions, and so we do probably have 2 or 3 students in both year groups that are doing 4. Often it's the students who are doing maths further maths, that's a combination that often means that people end up doing 4. And so we will look at it on a case-by-case basis. But broadly speaking, most people will do 3 and then electives, and that's the stuff that kind of makes you stand out, and you can write about in your personal statements and applications. The other reason that sometimes people don't choose 4 to commit to over time, but if they really are struggling by the time we get to September to choose 3 from 4 because they like 4 subjects, is that we'll give them an opportunity early on to go to both and then make a decision early on in the year. But the idea that people are going to choose 4 courses for the whole of the 2 years is for a very small number of students for particular reasons. But like I said, we'll look at those on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so what happens next? You can follow us on Instagram at Sheldon Sixth Form, where we'll be giving updates about things that are happening in the Sixth Form anyway, but also things that are happening kind of in terms of Year 11 moving into the Sixth Form. Do lots of research, look at the prospectus and the course booklet online, talk to teachers, and as part of that research, if you're one of those students who's already got a bit of an idea about what you might want to do at university, it might be worth looking at some of their kind of entry requirements on their websites too, because you need to make sure you're choosing the right A-levels. So for example, students choosing chemistry, if they're going to do medicine, people always used to think it was biology they needed, but for most medical schools, chemistry is more important. So doing a little bit of research about what universities might want, but if you've got no idea what you want to do as a job, which is most students probably, then James is right. Choose subjects that you really enjoy, choose subjects that you're good at. Obviously that's now. Applications by January the 21st. Now, I've already answered a couple of questions about this to people before tonight. That deadline is really to help us to start putting together a timetable and to organise groups and all that sort of stuff, so we can see how many people have chosen particular subjects. If applications come in after that, we do still take them, and if people change their mind, I think this is the key thing, that those applications, it's really useful to help us start planning, that you put down the 3 subjects that at the moment you think are the 3 subjects you want to do. But lots of students change their mind. Obviously, we prefer it if they don't, but we're totally open-minded about the fact that people will change their mind because they get more information. People will change their mind because they do research about uni courses. More often than not, people change their minds when they've come for induction, they've done taster lessons, or crucially on results day. Results day, people change their mind, sometimes because they've done better in one subject than another than they thought, or sometimes because they haven't done as well and they've met the entry requirement. So the application deadline is January the 21st, and it would be good to get as many in by then as possible, saying what they feel that what they want to do right now, but be reassured that people do change their minds. Then we have usually when year 13 are on exams that me and Mr. Humphries and Ms. Fraser have got a bit more time. So the week beginning the 31st of February, we try and get through individual discussions with everybody who's applied. We don't call it an interview because it's not really an interview, it's a discussion. It's more of a careers conversation. You've said you want to do these subjects because for these reasons, is this the right thing for you to do? Those sorts of things. Have you thought about doing this? Why have you chosen it? It's more of a careers conversation for about 10 minutes, nothing to worry about. And we have those individual discussions week beginning the 31st of January this year. It might run over into the week after. If you're out there from another Sheldon, another school apart from Sheldon, fantastic, you're very welcome, and I'll be in touch with you. If we haven't got your email address, it'd be great if you could email us at sixthform@sheldonschool.co.uk, and that information is on the website, so we can send you an invite to our external applicants day, where you'll be able to have a tour, meet some students, meet some staff, and have that individual conversation as well. And if parents want to come for that tour as well, then they're very welcome. And the induction, as I said, is on between July the 4th and 7th. And it's worth me reiterating at this point, somebody asked earlier about careers. Our careers advisor, Katie Witchell, is available for careers advice. She prioritises her time at this time of year for kind of year 11s and year 13s. And so absolutely they can self-refer, they can email her directly to make appointments if they want to have individual conversations with Katie Witchell, our careers advisor. Right, I'll take a breath and have another sip of water whilst I have a look at the questions. So we've got quite a few coming through. One of the questions is, there are three comprehensive schools in Chippenham. Do each have specialist subject areas? No is the simple answer. Not in any kind of formalised way. There are some schools offer some subjects that others don't. So that is probably more of a difference, I would say, is that there is no formal specialisation by those schools in their sixth form subjects, but there will be variations in terms of the subjects that are offered. So, for example, when it comes to languages, we offer the German, Harden offer the Spanish, and we share the French, so that we can offer all three language subjects, for example. So there's no real specialism, but there are variations in the subjects that schools offer, and we've got quite a broad offer because of the size of our sixth form. Signposting to more information about the electives. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of information. So one of the questions is about signposting to more information about the electives. There is a bit of information about the electives in the prospectus, which is alongside the course booklet on the website. So there's a bit more information about core maths and EPQ, for example. But the others, there isn't a great deal of information in there because it can vary from year to year in terms of what we can offer, in terms of what we can timetable. All of the volunteering kind of stuff that's on there, volunteering, mentoring, that will be consistent. And we hope that we'll be able to offer British Sign Language and Russian and critical thinking, those others again next year. But staffing changes, timetables change. So we confirm those details in July when we do the induction. But certainly the EPQ and core maths, there's a bit more information about that in the prospectus. And if you want any further information about something specific, then feel free to email us. What percentage of students come from other schools? Percentage-wise, I'm not sure. I'd have to do some quick maths, but each year, it varies from year to year. We have usually around 20 external students. I think it's been as high as 40 in some years. So it varies from year to year. We always have, well, certainly in the 3.5 years that I've been here, we've had some international students. So we've had some students from Germany, Switzerland, Italy, which is fantastic. They bring a whole different kind of flavour to the sixth form and form friendships with students here. I know students that have gone over to visit and stuff since. Yeah, so we pick up some students from Harden-Hewish and Corsham, Abbeyfield, Lavington, one or two schools from Bath sometimes. So we draw students from schools all over. It varies from year to year, but usually somewhere between kind of 20 and 30 from other schools in a year group of 170. So that sort of proportion. Class size question. It kind of varies from subject to subject. So there are some subjects which generally tend to have much smaller class sizes because of the nature of the subject. So, something like music, for example, because of the level at which you need to be proficient in a particular instrument, for example, tend to have, maybe only 5, 6, 7, 8 in a class. Whereas a subject like sociology, psychology, criminology would be in the 20s, maybe 25 students in a class because they're just more popular subjects and you don't need specialist equipment for them and stuff like that. So it varies from subject to subject. What sort of class sizes have you two got for your subjects at the moment?
My drama class is quite small, so is my Spanish class and art. So they're all quite
small.
Yeah.
Mine's generally quite big because biology, physics and maths, they're all quite like common subjects that people like to take. So
in biology and chemistry, maybe 20?
Yeah, so probably around 20.
Yeah, okay. Great, thank you. How do people from other schools handle their applications? Yeah, we were hoping that we would have it in an electronic form this year and you'd be able to fill it in online, and for various reasons that didn't happen. So you can find the application form on the website as a PDF. If you download it and fill it in and then take a picture of it and email it, that's absolutely fine. Or you can download it, fill it in and post it in or drop off at reception. What else have we got? Is the course choice handbook just electronic this year? Yes, it is. Partly because of the pandemic and kind of handing them around, and partly to save the planet and reduce kind of impact in terms of paper and ink. So yeah, it's just electronic. You'll find it on the website. What is expected in terms of school day and uniform? Yeah, so initially the school day, so at the beginning of year 12, essentially what we say to students is we want you in school all day, every day. So despite the fact that you will have what students call free periods and we call study periods, but to start with, to get students into good routines about how to use that study time, initially in year 12, we want them in school all day, every day. And then at the end of the first term, we start to look at kind of data and get reports from teachers about how people are doing. And we look at attendance and that information from teachers. And if people are using their study time effectively, meeting deadlines, attendance is good, they can start to earn home study. So they do that kind of, a double period at a time. So most of year 12 then at that point then earned kind of, an afternoon where they can have home study. And then you can build that up over time and earn more home study as long as you're doing the right things and showing that you're a good independent kind of sixth form learner. And if you don't, then the opposite can happen, which is that you don't have home study. You might end up with some supervised study, because we know that some sixth formers are ready to be independent learners and some need a bit more support. And so we staff the study room about 60% of the time, and so some students will have some supervised study to help get them into that sort of routine. So yeah, it starts off kind of in school all day, every day, and then you can earn kind of more time to go off. In terms of the dress code is, I think it's on the website as well, and if not, I can share it. And it's we do have a dress code, so it's easier to talk about things that we don't want really. We want sixth formers to be reasonably smart, but we don't have a kind of a business wear thing. They can wear jeans, they can wear trainers, but we don't want ripped jeans. We don't want sports wear apart from on a Wednesday afternoon. We don't want joggers. They're allowed to wear hoodies, but they're not allowed to wear joggers or so yeah, it's kind of, we want them to be role models, we want them to be smart, but we have moved with the times a bit over recent years. Could you explain AS levels and whether they are in all subjects? AS levels are pretty much on their way out. Because most students will be doing 3 subjects, they're committing to those 3 subjects as A levels for 2 years. In some cases, like we talked about, students who start on 4, it might be they get to the end of the first year and decide that they're going to only continue 3 into the next year, and they might take an AS in their 4th. But again, like I said, that's fairly unusual. And it could be that somebody starts on 3 and then thinks that that's too much for them and they're going to drop down to 2 and they might do an AS. But for the vast majority of students, AS exams at the end of the first year won't be a thing anymore. We'll do our own internal assessments, which will help us to kind of support students into the second year and give us a guideline for UCAS predictions. But broadly speaking, AS levels are kind of on their way out. Health and social care, is this a recognised A level? Strictly speaking, it's not an A level, and in the course booklet you'll see that there's several of our subjects, about 4 or 5 of our subjects, that are identified as technical subjects that strictly speaking are not A levels. So health and social care is not an A level, and neither is food or criminology, but they carry the same number of UCAS points, which is the key thing in terms of applying to university or for apprenticeships and stuff like that. So although they are different qualifications, so they might be known as a WJEC diploma or something like that. So although they're not called A levels, they carry the same number of UCAS points. Is there a possibility that a student who is unsure about their A-level choices could be disappointed to find a course is full later on? A possibility, yes. I mean, it can happen. I suppose this year, what happened a little bit was that criminology was incredibly popular, and then when people changed their minds later and wanted to change into criminology, initially it didn't look like there was space, but we managed to accommodate everybody in the end, I think. So yes, is there a possibility that somebody changes their mind later and the thing they're trying to change to is full? It's possible, and so that's why it's really important to do your research, speak to the teachers, come and speak to us. Come to the induction and do those taster sessions. It's possible, but I can't think of any examples this year where that's been the case. The other thing that's worth bearing in mind is that obviously when people are trying to change subject, it's also dependent on what's being taught when, because some subjects will be taught at the same time, and although most people end up getting their first choice combinations, some combinations might not work, so it's worth being upfront about that too. Does a diploma hinder university applications? Is it seen as an attractive qualification? It really, mostly not is the simple answer. Most of those qualifications were added to the curriculum before I arrived here, but we didn't add anything to the curriculum that we didn't do our research about first and speak to universities and check for the UCAS points, and because we don't want to disadvantage students. So part of the reason we only offer 4 or 5 things that aren't traditional A-levels is because we wanted to keep things that would open as many doors as possible, keep options open for as long as possible. And lots of those students you saw on the previous slide who got straight A's or A stars or distinction stars, the distinction stars were health and social care or food technology, who have gone on to very good universities. So no, broadly speaking, it doesn't. Could I say hand on heart that there aren't some very traditional universities that wouldn't look at some of those in the same way? Possibly, but if you're doing 2 other subjects which are kind of more traditional A-levels, then it wouldn't be an issue anyway. So yeah, what academic support is offered outside the classroom? It really depends. It will depend on the student. I mean, the key things in terms of academic support are: is it academic support subject specific? Is it subject specific support, in which case individual teachers will support students in study time? There are several subjects that offer surgeries after school, so psychology, criminology, maths off the top of my head. I know science do quite a lot of those as well. So after school kind of support from students on a regular day. I know art, if I go up to the art students or up to the art or music block, there's often students up there working and just teachers dip in and out to support them. If it's more broadly, then it depends on the situation. If we know of particular students with particular needs, then we have had support from learning support. It tends not to be in lessons like you have lower down the school with a TA in lessons, but we have had a regular support for a student to help them with their essay structure from learning support, for example, that sort of thing. There doesn't seem to be many more questions. Oh yeah, mentoring. So we also, in terms of that sort of academic support, kind of peer-to-peer mentoring year 13s, supporting and mentoring year 12s, year 13s going into year 12 lessons as well, and kind of not just in terms of academic support, in terms of those struggling to understand something, but also in terms of stretching the more able, or those that are aspiring to get the best possible grades. A lot of that happens in terms of peer-to-peer support. I think we've covered most of the questions that come through. I'm conscious that I've spoken a lot and you two haven't said very much at all. There was a question, I think you probably covered it a bit before, but if you want to come back to, there was a question on there right at the beginning which said kind of why you would recommend. I think you probably covered that, but last little bit you might want to mention. Or maybe that about your free periods, study periods.
My study periods. What kind of study periods I have?
How you use that time.
How I use it.
Yeah.
Well, because I'm an art student, I have a lot of coursework, and other students who take coursework like subjects like to use their time to their study period time to complete that outside of lessons, because there's a lot of mediums that you might want to experiment with. Especially in the art facility, you can use some of the graphics software, or you can go into film, which is what I like doing, or oil paints and stuff like that. but also you can use it to revise. You can use it to rewrite your notes. There's lots of things you can, I don't know, you might have something.
Yeah, I tend to firstly get my homework done.
Yeah.
In this free periods is good, and then if I have time on top of that, I tend to just use the study room, to try and get a bit of revision done on the topics that we've just done in class or something. You can use the library as well. That's mainly.
Yeah, I mean, sixth formers, the key areas at sixth form, the key places that sixth formers use are the common room and the study room. But like James and Yelly said, lots of the art students end up in art, music over here because of the facilities that are available for sixth formers over here. James gave a model answer for me, which is, I say this all the time, and I wish students did it more. If you use your study time effectively and get into good habits early on of using your study time effectively to get your homework done, and to kind of do consolidation work, going back over your lesson notes, then it makes things a lot easier. There's a phrase we use quite a bit when we get going, which is about always something to do. Sixth form students, there's a lot to get through in A-levels, and there's always something they can be getting on with. That's not to say they should be always working. There is downtime and social time, but they've got plenty to get on with, and we help them to kind of structure that study time through the tutor programme early on. I think that's about it for questions. If there were, I know some people have individual questions that people have contacted me about for specific situations with their own children. That's absolutely fine. Send those through to either espires@sheldonschool.co.uk or to sixthform@sheldonschool.co.uk. If you are watching this from, if you're a Sheldon School student, we will get your application form in before January the 21st if you can. If you want to come and talk to us about that, then we're in the sixth form office. We will then be in touch with you about an individual discussion end of January, beginning of February. If you're an external student, then again, if you can get your application in by the 21st January, that'd be great. And then we'll be in touch with you about coming to visit on February the 17th. If for whatever reason that date doesn't work because you've got your own internal exams that day, or for some other reason, then we will find some other way for you to come in and have a visit. But again, just email us at sixthform@sheldonschool.co.uk or look on the website. The sixth form area of the website has got lots of this information on there. Okay, thank you so much for giving us your time this evening. If you think of any other questions afterwards, just get in touch. And if my mum is watching, thanks. See you later. Thank you.